Hello, everyone, and welcome to the View from the Booth podcast. I'm still your host, Mo Stewart, and we are now about to record episode 2. I'm very, very, very excited about this because I've got a fella in here who it's quite hard to describe because I know him as a DJ, but since then he's kind of had a nomadic career across literally every kind of discipline you could think of. But he is here in Liverpool to DJ. He's the man behind the Beatles Dub Club, who are playing later this evening. Chris Arnold, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. What an honour.
Oh, genuinely, the honour is mine. Like I say, I want to give you a shout out because you're the only person I know whose personal Facebook page is actually up to date. And the list of all the different jobs on there are remarkable. Yeah. I mean, do you want to list some of them?
Yeah, well, first of all, a lot of people are giving up on Facebook, aren't they?
Yeah.
The younger generation, they're all on Snapchat and TikTok. A lot of people on Twitter and Instagram. Facebook is a bit like a kind of a city that's gone to ruin. And everything is all over the place, isn't it? It's an absolute nightmare.
Or like one of those seaside towns where some people still come, and there's a few things that are still there, but it's all a bit faded. And
the heyday was a long time ago, and people are still going there. There's a lot of older people knocking around there, sharing all sorts of questionable memes. But yeah, I still use it, and there's still a lot of people there, and it kind of is still decent for letting people know where you're playing, where you're DJing, where you're performing. But I feel like it's very busy on there and it's hard for anything to really pierce through. But basically, I've been DJing for a long time now. I started DJing 2010, 11, and then probably by 2012, I was doing it professionally. And over the years, I've done lots of work in like media, so lots of TV stuff and radio stuff. So my current main job is in the BBC, at BBC Radio Bristol, working on something called BBC Upload, which might be of interest to DJs listening in because lots of DJs can get involved with BBC Upload by submitting their DJ mixes. They can end up on the BBC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so to sort of paraphrase, BBC Upload is a bit like BBC Introducing. We all know about BBC Introducing.
Yes.
It's where musicians can get their big break, where a lot of the big stars first came through. But BBC Upload welcomes all sorts. It welcomes comedy, poetry, podcasts, fiction, and DJ mixes and music as well. So it's basically you can upload whatever you want and it can end up on the BBC.
Wow.
So my main job is like looking after that, which is great because it's all like new talent. It's all like exciting stuff.
So podcasting, yeah?
Yeah, so podcasting. Yeah, this could end up on the BBC.
Wow.
You never know.
Well, I mean, I like to think that this is an educational podcast in its entirety because we are kind of here pulling back the curtain for people about what it's really like as a DJ. And yeah, I mentioned you've done lots of different things, but DJing was the start. I wanted you to talk to me a little bit about Cool Beans.
Yeah, okay.
Because it sounds like your start within the kind of student union world is kind of similar to mine, as in it was something that was like almost like an opportunity that I took because it was there, and then it kind of grew and grew. And looking at the website and the list of places that you've played and artists you've played with, it's incredible because it did look like it kind of grew kind of organically.
Very organically, yeah. So basically, I was at Sheffield University. I was in my final year, and I have to say, I kind of like I wasn't not like I was a wild and out of control student, but I definitely wasn't like applying myself in those first few years. And then as I got to my final year, I thought, you know what, I want to sort of like actually do some work and like get my degree passed and everything like that. But then I also was like, you know what, I want to make the most of a kind of Sheffield and what you can do there. And two things I did in my final year. I signed up to do student radio to learn a bit more about how to do radio properly, and I started putting on events. And we needed a name, and I asked a few of my friends if they wanted to get involved with me, and they were keen. I basically asked like the funniest people. I thought they would be good for the job, and we needed a name. And at the time, I was a big fan of the film Hot Rod. You know, the Andy Samberg.
Yes, I do. It's funny because that was probably a cult classic, but since that point, Andy Samberg has become so much more popular.
Yeah.
So I think more people are probably aware of it now.
Yeah, more people are definitely aware of Andy Samberg, but that was like, early days still for The Lonely Island, and yeah, Hot Rod was still a bit of a cult classic, really. I don't think it did very well at the cinema, but it's a quite surreal comedy film, very silly. You know, like Bill Hader's in it and Will Arnett and people like that. Yeah. And there's a scene when Andy Samberg's character and his best friend they have a fight, and then they make up and they say, "Are we good now?" And they're like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Cool beans," and the other one goes, "Cool beans," and then it goes into some. I mean, it starts like remixing. It goes into some mad kind of like mashup remix kind of song, and we just found it really funny. So we were like, "Why don't we call the radio show the Cool Beans Radio Show?" And we actually used that clip from the film as the intro. And then we were like, "Why don't we call the club night Cool Beans as well?" And basically, the idea was just a fun night, kind of multi-genre, and do it at a different venue each time, which probably goes against the kind of general rule of promoting. The general rule of promoting is build up, same venue.
Yes.
It's last Friday of the month. But we just were trying things out, basically. So we were taking it around different venues in Sheffield. And we were putting on bands and some comedy acts and all sorts. And I was like playing the music in between the acts.
Yeah.
You know, very kind of rudimentary, just using like virtual DJ, not mixing, just playing like the tunes. Mm-hmm. And then I tell you what was a turning point. I went to Festival, Rob da Bank's big festival. And I've been to like, Reading Festival and festivals like that in the past, but I've never been to like a boutique-y kind of festival like Festival. They're everywhere nowadays, aren't they? Yeah. They're absolutely everywhere. But I'd never really seen anything like that before. And I was blown away by all these like wacky acts that I was seeing. One of the acts I saw were the Correspondents.
Yes, I know them.
Yeah. So, and then I thought, they're amazing. So I booked them for Sheffield, early days of Cool Beans, and it took a bit of a risk and it cost a bit of money. But ended up like we were hoping for like 200 people or so, but we had to move venue because tickets were selling so well. And like 600 people ended coming to this event. It just was like a moment where everything came together.
I love the fact that you seem to be literally breaking all the rules because you said you kind of taking your event from venue to venue. And my head was like, I bet they fucking hated that.
Yes, yeah. Venues don't like it if you move stuff around. I mean, even the other day, did the Beatles Dub Club show in his venue in Bristol, and the next venue we're going to do it at is at a different venue. And the venue that we just did it at, we're like, why can't you just do it again here? And I still do. I think I like keeping things fresh. I think that's one thing I've realized about myself. I like keeping things fresh. I have done like nights over the years where it's been like I did a weekly night at the Harley in Sheffield for a while, and that was every Wednesday. So I have done that sort of thing. But I do like the idea of moving it around. But yeah, off the back of like Cool Beans doing quite well as a night in Sheffield, it meant a few things. It meant I could stay living in Sheffield when I graduated and started working as a DJ and events host. And also I kind of started to get booked as like a DJ. Mm. And that's really when I started DJ more. And a friend of mine called Bryn, he knew how to like mix. So he kind of showed me the basics, and then you just learn as you go along. This was the era where it was vinyl was still a thing. Obviously, vinyl's still a big thing now, but it was moving into CDJ territory. Yes. So not like USB territory, but you show up with your big wallet of like burnt CDs. You know it well.
I mean, people who genuinely know me and have seen me DJ will know that was me until literally 2 months ago.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
I was the last man standing with CDs, and then unfortunately, my CDJs broke. And I had to move on. I'm still not really 100% over it, to be brutally honest with you.
So have you had to start using like USBs and record box now and Serato or whatever? Yes. And how do you feel about that?
In some ways, it's easier because if you'd have ever seen me before, frantically flipping through my CD wallet, thinking, I know the CD's here somewhere. Where is it? Where is it? And I've got 10 seconds to find it, put it in, find the right cue point, and then play the song. So I don't have that kind of level of fear running through me when I'm DJing anymore.
Yeah.
But something in me misses that.
Really?
Yeah. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm so used to the chaos that I'm not into that. Although that said, I have kind of found some new ways of mixing from it because obviously, when you've got a screen, it's up there in front of you, etc., etc. So I'll get used to it.
Yeah. That was me for a long time as well with the wallets, the CD wallets, and you were flicking through, and then you're like, oh, I know it's here. I think it's in the second to last page. You get there, oh, where's the CD? Yes. And then one thing I found eventually, they started scratching, so some of the tunes you put it on and be like, oh, no, not this one. It starts scratching about 2 minutes in. So, and all
that. I've been through all of those, yeah.
But then I moved over to Serato I got like a MacBook and started using Serato. And then after a while, that started to get a bit buggy on me and would let me down sometimes when DJing. So then in the recent years, I'm probably pre-COVID, maybe like a year before COVID, I moved over to Recordbox. And it is straightforward, just a couple of USBs, plug them in.
I know.
Pretty robust, really. Make sure you got a backup. But on the whole, jobs are good.
Yeah, there's a reason why everybody does it that way now. I mean, I'm not just being a curmudgeon, by the way. Some of the people who come to see me regularly have come over and said to me, it's like they miss seeing me flipping through CDs and rubbing them on myself to get rid of all of the sweat. But yeah, we should move on past. I mean, time moves on, so should we. The music stays the same, though.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about the difference between DJing in between and then having time to actually construct a full set. Because when you're playing in between bands, you're almost kind of beholden to what the acts are, and you're kind of thinking, I'm trying to be a bridge between what that was and what this is going to be. Whereas once you're doing your own set, you've got your own template in front of you.
Yeah. And I like both, I like both. And I've done lots of sets over the years where I've been like the guy DJing in between the bands at festivals and stuff like that. And I do quite like the idea of like, right, that band has finished, they're a reggae band, the next band on like a ska band or whatever, like you want to make that gradual transition to when they come on. But when you've got your own, when it's just you, the focus is more on you. So you can cultivate that set a little bit better, can't you? Obviously, it depends if you're DJing at a club or a bar all night long, or whether you've got like an hour or a couple of hours amongst other DJs. So that can really vary. But is there one I prefer over the other? I wouldn't say no. I quite like both of them. Yeah,
it is kind of like different disciplines and different mindsets. Like you mentioned something as well about when you're playing with lots of other DJs, like. I'm always the psychologist in me always comes out when I'm in that situation, because I'm kind of like, it feels a little bit like you're all like an athletics meet and you're all in the call room just kind of like sussing each other out, just be like, trying to be civil and be like, oh yeah, good show, hopefully but also like, I want to smash you. Do you ever get that feeling?
Yeah, I know that there is that competitive element. I probably feel it like a little bit less so, but definitely like over the years, maybe like when you're on a lineup or on a stage and maybe there's like 5 or 6 of you or so, you kind of do want to do a good job and figure out the crowd. So there is that. There's that in comedy as well, like comedians, obviously there's usually like 5 or 6 of them backstage, all trying to like suss each other out, who's going to actually get the best response. And there's a similar thing there with DJs, definitely.
Although one thing that comedians have is that it's unlikely someone's going to stand up there and tell the joke that you're literally about to tell. I mean, I still vividly remember the time when I was meant to be playing after someone and their last tune was meant to be my first tune.
Okay,
and it spun me out. But luckily, I remembered that I could just play what was going to be my second tune. Because it mixes in quite well. But do you have any kind of vivid memories of those times of like stories of mad stuff that happened to you backstage? And
there's been bits and bobs over the years. One memorable night I remember doing Boomtown Fair Festival, and it was like in one of the tents in like the sort of ravey area. And I remember I was on like half 2 till 4 or something on a Saturday night. It was like very much like party central. And I remember there was lots of stuff going on the stage at Boomtown Fair. For those who haven't been, there's all sorts of like wandering actors and like fire breathers and this that, and the other. And I was DJing. There was someone with an angle grinder, with sparks flying around and stuff like that. And I remember someone gave me like a pineapple. And I remember sort of like, I was like, who wants the pineapple? Like into the mic, and like threw it to the crowd, and everyone went mad. And then like 10 minutes later, it got thrown back at me, but it'd been like chewed through the skin.
What?
I was like, that's a Boomtown Fair crowd there for you, isn't it? Absolute jaws of steel. But I remember that vividly, and then we had a lot of fun, like kind of like afterwards backstage, it was like the state of this pineapple.
Oh my God. I mean, well, at least they threw it back. Like,
yeah.
Bloody hell, gee.
Yeah.
But then I always think that about when you're kind of playing for people, you're happy for them to kind of get into that kind of feral almost energy because it's like, I'm feeding off it. But don't come too close.
Yeah. I have to, we could. There's lots of things to be said about sort of crowd interaction while you're DJing and being pestered for requests.
Yes.
And that sort of thing. Like I have to say, I'm not like an anti-request DJ. I know some DJs like hate it, don't they? They're like, I'm here to do the gig. I'm here to do the job. Leave me alone. I don't mind requests. I think when it's like kind of persistent or if they're being rude or whatever, that's when it can obviously get a bit frustrating. But I have to say, like in recent years, I don't do as many gigs where I'm like right amidst the crowd. I do like it when you're on stage. There's maybe like a security guard on the side, like, or they're far enough, or so maybe that people might hold up their phones and say, "Can you play this?" or whatever. But I also think it was like a post-COVID thing. I remember actually doing a few gigs coming, late 2021, and we just come out of lockdown, and I was like, I'm not too sure about being in the midst of everyone again just yet.
That was exactly the same, and I've always been someone who will listen to requests, but like you say, it does depend upon how it's put across. But in those moments when we were just kind of getting back to it, I was kind of a bit like, okay, if no one talks to me tonight, I'll be all right. And then when someone would come up, rather than just kind of leaning, I'm kind of very much leaning my face away from them. So they're like, if you're going to affect me, at least infect my ear.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Obviously, these are like loud environments, so everyone's like shouting. Do you do many of those sit-down gigs? Like socially distanced sit-down gigs?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did not like them.
No, it was a weird time, wasn't it?
There was a couple of times when I was playing and people were actively having to be told to stop dancing.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is wrong. This is wrong on so many levels. Why are we stopping? Like, I almost felt like stopping the music and be like, you know what, screw this, I'm going home.
Yeah.
And then I remember the money and I said. So, speaking of this, I mean, your career has kind of gone on a mad trajectory in terms of you've played, like you say, festivals and stuff like that before we even get to the Dub Club stuff. But when you've been doing some of the, when you were kind of building up that, have you had a few of those moments where you're playing to an empty crowd and you're thinking, what am I doing here? How am I piecing this together? How do you keep it going?
Yeah. Well, I have to, cause I was in bands before DJing, and I've done bits of like comedy as well, like over the years, and hosting events. So I've done all sorts. So I've played to my fair share of like empty rooms or empty like tents or whatever, like over the years. And I think I remember like early on when I was in a band, I always used to. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, there's no one here or whatever. And then you kind of learn early on that actually you never know who's there. You never know like who might be watching. I remember we were doing a gig and with my band, and the guitarist usually would jump around and put everything into it. And then we were doing a gig and there was hardly anyone there, and he just was like really phoning in, just standing there. And I was like, come on, mate, what's wrong? And he was like, well, what's the point? No one's here. But I think you do have to put your all in. Depending on the gig. Like if you're playing to a bar and it's pretty chilled and everyone's sitting down, it's Sunday night or whatever, maybe you can sort of phone it in a little bit. But on the whole, you just got to play for yourself. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, if there's no one there, you might as well play for yourself and the bar staff. Like keep them and the venue staff and all that. It's almost trickier. Like if you got like if you suddenly you've got like 10 people on the dance floor, then that's really hard, isn't it? Actually, because playing to no one is easy because no one's there. You play whatever. Playing to a full house, that's fairly, if they're on side, then that's easy as well. But when you got like 10, 15, it's hard. It's hard
because you can see the looks on their faces. When you put a new song on and you're just kind of like, yes, still gonna dance, are we? Or if they go to the bar and you're just like, oh god.
I know. It's really if you play something they don't like, they will just, it's really visible. They will just like don't react.
Very much so.
So I've had, and I still do have like gigs, plenty of gigs where like barely anyone's there. It's all part of it, I remember actually it was early on in my DJ career. I was here for, I think it was Sound City.
Oh yeah.
And it was one of the Red Bull events. I used to do some of the Red Bull stuff. And I remember one of them, it was big DJs. I think I was on like doing the warm up, and there was people like Artwork and Melee and big big gigs. It just wasn't busy for whatever reason. There was no one there. And this was like early days of Twitter. It might have been like 2013 or so. And I remember the next day, Artwork tweeting, I played to nobody last night and I did not smash it. and I remember thinking, that's refreshing, you know.
Yeah.
It is refreshing because you're so, especially on social media, so used to seeing everyone smashing it all the time.
Exactly.
So I quite like that. And, you know, over the years, I've been very happy to share some of the videos where no one's come to watch me DJ. And sometimes I'll put something like, you know, absolutely smash the gig. Thank you to everyone who came down. And then like the video will be like 3 people just sat down in the corner.
See, I don't know, maybe your personality in general kind of helps you kind of get through those things as well. But
Yeah.
I don't know, I think for me, from knowing you and from seeing you, like your personality, it comes out when you're playing, like even through your music or, you know, through being a gregarious person. I think it's probably the fairest way of saying it. But then I'm very similar in that. And it's like, is that almost like you're doing it without realizing, or are you thinking this is helping as part of the entertainment thing?
Yeah, I think it's always sort of been my personality to drift towards the like more humorous stuff. So the bands I was in as a teenager, we were like quite silly and quite fun. And then the Cool Beans, you know, the events that I would run, the focus would be on the fun. We'd like mix it all up musically, but it'd have to be kind of fun. And then my DJ sets, you know, would always be like quite good fun. Like I was, you know, a party DJ, happy to mix it up and play lots of different genres and, you know, ravey stuff as well. But on the whole, it was all like orientated in fun. So I think I lead into that quite a lot, and I think it's stuff that I'm comfortable with. And I think, over the years it has maybe helped with some of the career sides of things, you know, especially sometimes like using social media for silly things that can go like some stuff has gone viral and that sort of thing. And then you end up getting opportunities off the back of it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I still can't get over the fact that you're going to, what is it, a jigsaw museum? Because for those who don't, like, I'll let you tell the story of the jigsaw. It's one of my favourite of your bits, by the way. I just saw, because I know it's been kind of going on for a while, and then I just saw that this is happening. It's like,
really odd.
You are one of these people that mad shit just keeps happening to.
Yeah. So sometimes you just keep going with the gag. You never know where it will get you. So this goes back to like lockdown 2021. This January 1, you know, suddenly it was announced we were going to be locked down for another like 5 months. And that was a tough one, you know, because it was like, God, this is a slog. The novelty of lockdown has worn off.
We've watched all the videos. We don't need to see anymore.
And in fact, I think I said it was like, you know, halfway through Jan, I put something on Facebook like, given up on Netflix doing jigsaws now. And I just put up a photo of me looking a bit full on with this jigsaw. And then someone messaged me. He's actually the trombone player in a band that I used to like do gigs with a long time ago, a guy called Josh. He just messaged me and said, "What's your address?" And I gave him my address and I didn't think much of it. And then like a few weeks later, I get a knock at the door and the postman's dropping off this parcel. I open it up and it's a jigsaw of me doing the jigsaw. So it's a jigsaw of me doing the jigsaw. And then I'm like, that is funny, actually. I didn't know about these sort of jigsaws, but you can order them online. So it's a jigsaw of me doing a jigsaw. And then I get to work doing the jigsaw.
Because obviously you have to.
So then eventually I finished the jigsaw of me doing a jigsaw. And then I put that up online as well. And then a few months went by, and then like my work colleagues sent me a jigsaw of me doing a jigsaw of me doing a jigsaw, and it just like carried on. And then basically, and that was like quite funny, and people found it funny online. And then I was doing stand up at a place like a year and a bit ago now, a while ago, and I had some of it filmed where I was talking about me doing the jigsaw, and it was like a funny little this, that, and the other, a video of me doing stand up. And I remember this is the interesting thing about social media. I put it up on like Facebook and Twitter, maybe on my like Instagram stories or something like that, and it got like a bit of a response, like, you know, people enjoyed it, but it didn't go like crazy or anything like that. And at the start of this year, I started using TikTok. A friend of mine was like, "Why don't you start using TikTok?"
yeah.
And I hadn't really like gone near TikTok, maybe because I'm sort of getting on to mid-30s now. I think TikTok's what all the young kids are into. But a friend of mine, he's a little bit younger than me. He's like late 20s, but he's built up this huge following doing sketches and all sorts. And I was like chatting with him, and he said like, "You've got so much like content from the last like decade or so. Why don't you just put up some of that?" So I was like, why not? I had quite a chilled January and February. I wasn't gigging much. So I was like, I kept telling my wife that I was creating archive content for the vertical generation. That's what I was saying. And I just dropped these videos on TikTok vertical instead of horizontal because that's how everyone wants them nowadays. And some of them did well. Some of them did all right. Some of them don't do anything. But TikTok's kind of mad because even though you don't have a following, random videos can just go viral.
Yeah.
And the jigsaw one on TikTok just went crazy. It got like 500,000 views and then like 85,000 likes on it. But it just kind of went viral. And when something goes viral on Twitter, like everyone finds out about it because all the journalists are on there. But when something goes viral on TikTok, it just sort of sits there. But one thing that did happen is I get an email from the International Jigsaw Puzzle Convention. And they say, "Do you want to come and perform at this year's convention?" And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah, you can come and do your jigsaw material." I said, "I've only got 3 minutes."
I was going to say that. It's like, are they expecting more than what they've already seen?
I said, "Listen, I've only got like 3 minutes. I'll try and get some more and I could do some of my other stuff." And they were like, yeah, that would be fine. And I was like, okay. So, and then I quoted them like a certain amount, because obviously like flights and everything like that. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. It's sponsored by Ravensburger, which is like this big jigsaw company. And they were like, last year it was in Las Vegas. Next year it's in Dubai. I was like, well, this one's in Berlin. So that's quite good. But it's a shame I didn't get the video up a year ago. Could have been going to Las Vegas.
Bloody hell.
Imagine that.
Yeah, what will have to happen, someone will have to take a picture of you at the conference and turn that into a jigsaw. That has to be the next step. Yeah. Right. So one of the questions that I'm planning to ask everybody, I didn't ask Morph because I forgot. And sometimes you're in the flow of the conversation. These things. I'm not exactly a well-oiled host, I think it's fair to say. But I was in a taxi today. On the way here, and the taxi driver does what they all do. They asked me what I do, and I said a DJ. And I almost kind of sighed before I said it because I knew what the next question was going to be. Oh, so what kind of stuff do you play? And you know what? I've been DJing for 20 years. I still don't have a proper answer to that question. So I'm going to ask it to you. Just because I want to know. There might be something I can pick up and use. But genuinely, when people ask you that question, what is your answer?
You know what? It is a hard one. Because me and you are both multi-genre DJs.
Exactly.
So I say, I play all sorts of genres, and I'm quite a fun party DJ. Is what I tend to tell people. And then if they start asking about genres, I tend to say, I play all sorts from reggae to hip hop to disco to funk to some more ravey stuff like drum and bass. I kind of go all over the place, but it is quite hard. And DJs often debate, don't they, about actually what is better, to be just the genre DJ. I am a house DJ or I'm a D&B DJ. And I think if you become a big producer in that way, you can do really well. But I think it's kind of more fun to be multi-genre, even though it's hard to sort of pigeonhole yourself as a DJ. There aren't that many massive multi-genre DJs out there, are there really?
No. Yeah. And I had the same problem because it was almost like if I'm gonna kind of specialize, I'm kind of closing off so much of the stuff that I love, and I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
No, but I love that whole idea as well, because it normally comes, and as I say, comes from me just from a pure love of music, really. And being able to be in any situation, it's almost like a gunslinger. It's like, give me a CD wallet or a USB and a set of headphones and point me at a crowd.
Yeah.
No, I love that. Which kind of brings me nicely onto this whole Beatles Dub Club thing, because first of all, I'm kind of pissed off at you because this idea was just sitting there on the shelf for all this time. Yeah. And I never thought of it. And I fucking live here.
Yeah.
So I want to know how it came to you.
Well, it is a weird one, actually. Yeah. And actually, I go back to, I have always been a multi-genre DJ, but actually now the show that I get booked for the most is Beatles Dub Club. And that's a bit more boxed in. I'm a bit more boxed in with what I can do with that show. But basically, I've I'm sort of a big fan of doing something new, keeping it fresh, as I said, and actually, I can tell you exactly when it was. It was like late 2019, and I've always like gone in and out of like being kind of like borderline obsessed with like the Beatles, and as like a lot of people, I'm not the only one. Loads of people love them, and kind of really intrigued with their kind of the mythology behind it, everything they did in such a short space of time, everything that went on, and then like and then one thing I sort of realized is like so many covers and remixes and mashups and all sorts relating to the Beatles are out there now. You might be different to me, but even though I've DJ'd lots of stuff over the years and lots of different venues, and I was even a resident in a nightclub where I played in the room where it was like 60s, 70s, 80s music. But despite that, I don't play that many like Beatles songs out and about, like at a wedding, Twist and Shout might come out or something like that. But on the whole, the Beatles songs, though, even though everyone knows them, they're not super dance floor friendly.
No,
they're not. Yeah, they're not.
Like
are they?
I would say, the ones that I play regularly are Twist and Shout. I saw her standing there.
Yeah.
Come Together at the End of the Night, and Hey Jude if it's a wedding.
Yes. Yeah.
That's basically
Yeah. But they're one of the biggest band in the world, maybe. And their back catalogue is enormous, and everyone knows these songs. But I was going through, one of these deep Beatles dives that I was having in it was like autumn of 2019. And I started thinking, you know what, there could be like a fun festival show in this where I play versions of the Beatles tunes. Like I was thinking predominantly like reggae and dub and Latin and some of the remixes I knew were out there. And, there's a bit of a precedent for this. There's the Fleet Mac Wood guys who tour that show all around the world, don't they? And it's like cover remixes of Fleetwood Mac songs. And then there's this kind of whole scene of it's ABBA night tonight, or it's Taylor Swift night tonight, or it's whatever, and these throwback nights, which are kind of like in the social media age, very, very popular. And I've got a friend of mine, a guy, he's called Mikey, he's DJ Snooze, and he has a very popular show that he takes around the festivals, and it's called 80s Lycra Party. He's DJing 80s tunes, and he's got like dancers in Lycra. It does exactly what it says on the tin.
I was going to say, that sounds like an absolute layup.
Yeah, it does exactly what it says on the tin. And I thought, actually, festivals, they might like something like this on their lineups. It could be a fun way to do some different gigs, bit of a challenge, bit of this, that, or whatever. So I thought, call it Beatles Dub Club, like 3 buzzwords almost, like as a bit of a homage to, like Dub Pistols, the Gentleman Dub Club, and how they've used that term. And then obviously adding the Beatles in there. I got my mate who does artwork. He put some artwork together, and I put like a 15-minute taster mix together, made it as fun, as creative as I could. And, I've sort of been pestering festivals for years. And often with like me as a DJ, as do you want to book DJ Chris Arnold? It's like, yeah, maybe. There's so many other DJs like you. Or even I used to do like Cool Bean stuff, and people, they would be like, what is this Cool Bean stuff? Whereas I would contacting festivals, I was like, do you want to book the Beatles Dub Club? They're like, absolutely. Yeah, it was like response was like pretty immediate and was like, yeah, this sounds great. Yeah, why not? So I had a load booked in for 2020. I had like 10 festivals or so booked in. And obviously everything got cancelled, like so many, I was not the only person who had stuff cancelled. But because I never got going with it, I almost like, as we were coming out of lockdown, back to summer 2021, I wasn't sure about the idea anymore. A lot of us weren't sure about events or anything. We'd all been knocked sideways, but Green Man Festival, the Chai Waters guys who run the tent there, they said, do you want to come and do Beatles Dub Club idea? And I was like, yeah, okay. So I went down and did it. And I was on in between 2 bands. And I thought maybe I'd get some of the stragglers, in between the 2 bands. And I start playing and, people start like filtering in. It was 5 p.m. on the Friday. So, an okay time.
Yeah.
People still fresh. And then and they were coming in and they were singing along. And then by the end of the set, the tent was like full. It was like 2,000 people there. The guy running the tent was like, this is crazy. And I remember there and then he said, like, I've got a tent at like 4 festivals. Do you want to do all of them next year and all that? And then I had footage from it and everything like that. And then I was like, okay, it is a good idea. People were into it. So then like the following summer, so summer 22, I like honed it up and made the show a bit tighter. Lots of edits of the songs, a bit more digging around.
Yeah.
And then last summer was wild. I did, some of the shows still weren't that busy. To go back to like, they're not all screamers, but basically last summer doing the Beatles Dub Club stuff, some of them were like the biggest gigs I've ever done. So like Boomtown, Glastonbury, and Shambhala, and Blue Dot in particular, and Green Man again. They're all like thousands of people who came. Like Boomtown, I think was like, it was in the woods.
Yeah.
It was like 5,000-6,000 people or so. Like it was pretty bonkers. So it's just been really good fun and a different way of DJing, because usually you go to a gig and you might have some idea of what you're going to play, whereas now with this show I pretty much know I'm boxed in. I've got a limited amount of stuff, so I can mix it up a little bit. But it's almost like being in a band and you're taking your songs around.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like you're touring a certain album. But then I imagine, because I've only kind of dipped my toe, obviously I've listened to your mixes, but I've only dipped my toe into the whole world of Beatles covers. Like, there's so many out there.
Yeah.
I know you say you kind of like to keep things fresh, but you could do this for a long time if you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to I've refreshed the show a little bit for this year compared to last year. But I don't get too bogged down in it, I guess, especially at festivals. If people have seen it before, they can go and watch like something else. There's still a lot of people who haven't seen it, so I'm fine. And actually someone else who I'd say it's kind of a similar thing to a man of this city's parish, Craig Charles. What he's done with the Funk and Soul show, and over the years, you know what you're going to get with Craig Charles' show, don't you? You know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of funk and soul, and he's been doing that for a long time now.
Yeah, so. and still doing it really well.
Yeah,
I'm hopefully eventually going to get him on here to explain it himself.
Oh yeah, nice, yeah.
It's a long time in process.
He's a busy man.
He is a busy man.
Between his like 8 radio shows on 6 Music and all the DJing.
One of the very few people in the whole world that he ever listens to is a good friend of mine, so I'm hoping she's going to lean on him.
Oh yeah,
but we'll see. Speaking of famous friends, let's talk a little bit about your friend Norman.
Yeah.
AKA Norman Cook, AKA Fatboy Slim. For those who don't know, he got in touch with you, didn't he?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I've told this story like a couple of times now, but it was just before Glastonbury last year, and I made some social media pages for the Beatles Dub Club. Very small followership because it's like a brand new project, and just before Glastonbury, I had like opened up like Instagram and I had like a DM from Fatboy Slim. It went into like the requests folder, because I wasn't following him. And then like I just was like, Fatboy Slim, like, is this? I thought it was spam. I thought it was.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? And then I was like, hold on, it actually is him, And then I looked at it and he said, oh, really like this idea. My son has told me about it and hoping to catch a show at Glastonbury. And then he was like, let me know your email. I've got a song for you, like an edit for you.
What?
And I was like, what? So I gave him my email address, and then he sent me this great edit of Come Together, like a dub version of Come Together, which I, still very much is a part of the set. And I just was like, wow, this is mental.
I mean, not only to be giving you support about it, but to be giving you songs. Like, as DJs know, if we've got a song that we like and we think is really good, we're not necessarily going to share it with all of our other DJ friends.
No, especially not. And maybe because it's so far removed from what he does as Fatboy Slim, if he made like a great, like sort of house kind of edit or something, he probably would keep it to himself or maybe share with like a few people. But I think because it's so far off, and apparently he's a big Beatles fan and a big Dove fan, he just had been tinkering away with stuff. So he sent me that, and then as the summer went on, he sent me like a few more tunes, and they're all great, obviously, because he's a good producer. So I used them all, and then he invited me down to do his All Back to Minehead event at Butlins Minehead, which this is Fatboy Slim Weekender. And that was crazy. Like, it was like, loads of Fatboy Slim fans, and he did like lots of different sets, and then there was lots of different acts on as well, like mainly DJs. But great, and I'm doing that again this year. Like, they've asked me to go back and do the second one. But I just was sort of blown away by his kind of like sense of fun and generosity. Because he doesn't need to be. He's got plenty of other things to be doing.
No, he genuinely, like, all of the stories I've heard about him, he genuinely sounds like a stand-up bloke. So I'm always pleased to hear that remains.
All that stuff he does with Eats Everything,
exactly,
the Fatboy Eats Everything stuff, they're very funny together. Yeah.
And I mean, it is good to be able to see someone still enjoying it, because like, I think when you get to a certain age, I'm finding it close to that now.
Yeah.
It's almost like the job element of it can start to take over, but it looks like he's still very much involved in the fun element. And yeah, it gives me hope for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it must help for him that he pulls in crowds of like thousands of people.
It's a lot more fun when you're playing to people who are screaming your name. Got it. Thanks, Chris.
Well, me as well. But yeah, I think it was 59 at the All Back to Mine thing, so he might be 60 now. He might be, so he's getting on a bit, but I don't think he's going to stop or retire anytime soon.
He can't stop.
Yeah.
Like he literally can't stop. He's going to be playing. He's going to be playing Glastonbury every year until at least he dies or I die.
Yeah,
so that's already locked in. One last thing I was talking about Dub Club. Is this your first time tonight playing it in Liverpool?
It is. Yeah. So looking forward to it. It's made. I was quite happy it being like a festival thing and just something that pops up at festivals, but only because it did so well last summer. I've started to get a few like requests to play in like venues in cities. So done a few of them. So I did Bristol the other day, and that was amazing. That sold out. I did Lancaster yesterday, and that was really good. And I also did a London gig, and then Liverpool is like the last one of sort of the venue shows. But it's the first time like playing Liverpool, so yeah, very excited. Like tickets done quite well, and the city is absolutely alive as we're recording this. There's like tens of thousands of people above us because of Eurovision. Obviously, it's taken over the city.
Timing is impeccable as always. No, it is, and I think for me, it always days like this and times like this always reinforce one of the things I love about this place and why I've settled here is because they care about the things I care about, and I think Eurovision, it always felt like a good fit with the city because we're welcoming in general, but we're also we are lovers of music. I mean, there's people busking on literally every corner you can see around here, so I think you'll find that you will be received well, definitely. One thing I would say, I'm not sure about what your stage setup is, but you might get a few people coming up and asking for requests. I'm not even joking.
Yeah. I'm ready for that. The phone in the air with the text on it, that's fine.
I mean, the phone in the air if you're lucky. I mean, these people aren't afraid of climbing over a barrier or two. I will say that. All right, okay, so we're wrapping up now. Another question that I want to ask everybody. Well, two questions, really. One, what has been your favourite gig you've played so far? And the second question, which I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about while you're answering the first one, your ultimate gig, wherever it is and whoever it's for, what are the last three songs you're going to play? I see, this is why I'm giving you this choice, so you can have time to think in the background of the other one.
Well, I have to say, one of my favourite, it was two last summer. I think Glastonbury and Boomtown last summer were real moments where I was just like, wow, this is so many people that I'm playing to. It's like overwhelming. But over the years, I can probably think back to some of those first few Cool Beans events that I did. We did the second ever Cool Beans was in this tiny little pub called the Red House, and the first one I think we were finding our feet, and then the second one. It just was a full-on party, and everyone was having such a good time. And I remember thinking, like, this is incredible. Like, I want to keep on doing that. So I think the journey is almost as important as when you kind of get to the point maybe that you're aiming to be at. So they would be some of my favorite ones. There's lots from over the years, but those are. I tell you one that actually I always sticks out. Like when I was in bands, I was quite into like punk and punk rock and. Yeah. I was a big fan of like all the American stuff, and I remember this is way before Beatles Dub Club stuff. This was like 2014 maybe. I got asked if I wanted to do the fills in between the bands on the main stage. One was before the headliners, who were NOFX, the American band NOFX, who I was like a huge fan of. And I still am really. Actually, I bought tickets to see them later this year, but as a teenager, I just thought they were the best.
Yeah.
Very inspiring with regards to like DIY kind of ethics and just cracking on and doing stuff. So I remember doing that and then getting to meet them, and I remember just being like, this is insane. One of my favourite moments.
So were they there? Did they see you while you were playing?
Yeah, so I was like side stage. Boomtown's a bit wacky because I was like up. It's kind of a stage that isn't there anymore. It's called the Town Centre. I was like up in this little whole side stage, and then they played as soon as I finished. And I watched the show like side stage when I was chatting with. It was funny actually. the guitar player was starting to get into DJing, and he came over and was asking me all sorts of stuff about, oh, hey, how do these work and stuff like that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You should have got him to book you. It's like, yeah, look, next tour, I'll come on. I'll pay you in lessons.
Yeah. I don't know if I could handle being on the road with those guys. They released like a DVD of all their backstage kind of stuff. They're pretty chaotic band. But to go to that next question, so the final three songs, what would I kind of end with? Well, I tell you what, actually, to sort of like amalgamate what's been kind of like my finisher tunes like over the years. There was a period when I was doing a night in Sheffield called Threads, and I would often finish with, and this is quite a cheesy one to say, but Frankie Valli, Can't Take My Eyes Off of You.
Oh yeah.
Now, there was something about that song, about that time, that period. It was good friends with New York Brass Band, and they were doing like a brass band cover of it, very lively and all that. And we used to finish on it, and then it became a song that was around me and my girlfriend, now wife at the time, and then it ended up being our first dance at our wedding. So it means, and also New York Brass Band performed at my wedding.
Oh, fantastic!
And we started it to the song, doing our first dance, and then they came in from the back of the tent and started playing, and then they started their set like joining in from halfway. So that song is like a special place in my heart.
So I was going to ask you, did you DJ at your own wedding?
I did a little set, I think. Not a huge one. I think I might have played like a couple of songs.
Because I want to do that if and when I ever get married.
Yeah.
Some of my friends have looked at me like I'm crazy, but I'm glad. Every time I hear someone else do it, I'm like, yes. I
don't think I was down to play. That wasn't the plan, but I think I jumped because I had like a few of my friends play. So I think I ended up like jumping on. So yeah, that's one of the songs. And then maybe, at the moment I'm ending the Beatles Dub Club set principally with a great reggae version of Let It Be, which kind of does the trick.
Oh yeah.
And actually Fatboy Slim's done me an edit of Hey Jude, which is really kind of clever. And it's kind of not too far away from the original, but he's just sort of dubbed it up and it works really well. So I might play that later. Maybe, but I think I prefer the Let It Be one. And then I went through doing all the festival gigs early on when I was doing like multi-genre sets. I would more often than not finish with a Bob Marley number, maybe like One Love, or Three Little Birds. Probably one or the other, just because it was like the perfect way to end. So maybe one of them. So they would be my three, I'd say, maybe.
Very strong choices all. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the whole Bob Marley sentiment, it's something that will always do you good in Liverpool. Like, I mean, obviously you're doing the Beatles set, but if you're ever not doing a non-Beatles set in Liverpool and you wanted to end with Bob Marley, crack on. Particularly Three Little Birds. It will literally go off and they'll be singing it out the streets all the way down. It's one of my favourite things about this place.
Oh, really? Do you often finish on?
Oh yeah.
Oh nice. Yeah. No, it's so good. It's the music that man gave everyone. Yeah, and they're just perfect finishers, aren't they? Yeah. They're great. Yeah.
No, I love it. And that feels like a perfect time for us to finish this. Chris, I honestly could have asked you about 50 million different things, and I might even come back. If I ever do a show about comedians, I'm going to come back and ask you all the comedy questions. Yeah. But for now, thank you so much for coming. One last thing I will say, where can people who aren't going to be going to the gig tonight hear you over the course of the summer? Yeah,
so we're going to be releasing kind of like the little poster with all the festival dates, and there's still some being like fleshed out, but Beatles Dub Club, on all the socials, I'll be sharing all the info on there. But the ones coming up, I mean, and doing some of the Pub in the Park ones that look like quite good fun, one in Wimbledon, Leamington Spa, one in St Albans, and that's supporting UB40 with Ali Campbell, because I know there's two UB40s at the moment, so doing them, they should be good fun. And then like going back to Kendall Calling again, which I'm looking forward to. Then like a lot of new ones like Nibley Festival I'm doing, Funk Up the Farm, Breedy Reunion, all sorts. Oh, both camp festivals. Really looking forward to that. They were like the first two sort of festival bookings. Like Rob the Bank booked me for them back in like October or something. So both camp festivals should be really good. And then there's a few more like that are sort of being ironed out because it's still kind of early days, but looking quite busy again. Yeah. Should be a good summer. Definitely. Summer again.
I recommend to all of you, if you see this man on a playlist somewhere or on a bill somewhere, go and find him. Definitely. Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mo. Thanks.